everyone, my name is Juliana and I'm here to talk about my EF Ultimate Break trip to Italy and the Greek islands. So I was lucky enough this past August of 2022 to take a trip with EF Ultimate Break to Italy and the Greek islands. It was a 1-week trip in Italy and a 1-week trip in Greece, and it was absolutely amazing. So I'd love to talk just a little bit about this trip, about EF Ultimate Break in general, and really offer my advice and my expertise. I would love even to chat individually with each of you if that's something you'd like. So I'll talk about that in a little bit. But nevertheless, let's get started. So I had taken this trip, like I said, in August of 2022 with EF Ultimate Break. They are a travel company for anyone between the ages of 18 to 35. They have over 65 trips across the entire world that you can take. They have a couple trips even in the United States. You can really go anywhere, whether that's Europe, Asia, Australia, really anywhere else in the world. They have tons of different trips and different possibilities. So I decided to take my first trip with them, and that was to Italy and the Greek islands. So again, this trip was 1 week in Italy. We spent about 3 days in Florence, give or take, and 3 days, give or take, in Rome. Between traveling and other cities that we went to. We also had the opportunity to see Cinque Terre. We also saw Orvieto and San Gimignano and a couple different cities in Italy, which really made the experience worthwhile. Florence this time stole my heart. I would love to go back to Florence sometime soon. And yeah, so Italy was absolutely beautiful and absolutely worth it. Italy, that week of our trip, was more get up and go. We had a lot to do. We wanted to explore the cities and all of that good stuff. Whereas by the time we got to Greece, we kind of got to relax a little bit. By the time we got to Athens, we were there a good 2 days, kind of seeing the city life like we were in Italy, but getting ready to go see Santorini and Paros, where we knew we were going to relax. One of our days in Athens, even, we got to go to the coast, to Cape Sugno, and where the Temple of Poseidon is. And so we got to enjoy the water there as well. So I think it was a really good mix for a trip to be able to have one more energetic week and one more relaxing week, which was very nice. 2 weeks, of course, went by super fast, but it was definitely worth it. By the time we got to Greece, we spent 2 days in Athens, 2 days in Santorini, 2 days in Paros, and then went back to Athens for the last day, where we ended up having our farewell dinner, really soaked in the city, as the next day we were taking our flights home. All in all, everything went pretty well. Going to Italy, our flights were delayed about an hour or so, nothing too crazy. Our baggage got there, no problem. And then coming home, our flight was delayed a little bit longer, more about like 3 going on 4 hours, which really gave us a little bit of a time crunch to get on our connecting flight from Toronto back home. But nevertheless, it was definitely worth it. It's what happens when you travel. You're going to have times where you're kind of in a crunch and you don't know if you're going to make it, but then you always do. Some people's flights were canceled, but EF and their airlines were very quick to be able to remedy that for them and get them on the next flight. So that was very nice. One tip I'll throw in very quickly discussing flights. I brought both a carry-on as well as a checked bag. Even though there's a lot of issues as of lately with checked bags getting lost due to worker shortages in the airports, nevertheless, I still brought a checked bag as I wanted to make sure I had everything I needed as well as room for when I was coming home. So I would personally recommend, because a checked bag is included, even if you're not going to put much in there and you're really going to prioritize on your carry-on, to still bring a checked bag, only because when you come home, you're gonna have so many souvenirs, You might want to bring home that delicious bottle of wine or that amazing bottle of limoncello and want to have the room for it. And so I believe bringing a checked bag is really important. And I think a great tip, in which I did, and it really calmed my nerves a little bit about my checked bag, is to get an air tag. An Apple AirTag. I included one of those in my checked bag so I could look on my iPhone and see if my bag made it on the flight, if it made it to the next city, and that sort of thing. So if God forbid it got lost, at least I'd have an idea of where it was lost in, and hopefully speed up that process. But nevertheless, I still recommend bringing a checked bag. In Greece and a little bit in Italy as well, it's a little bit hard carrying both a carry-on and a checked. It's a lot to lug around sometimes, but nevertheless, I still would probably do that again to make sure I had everything I needed. And I don't think it was, at the end of the day, anything that you couldn't handle in terms of bringing your luggage around. If anything, just make sure you don't have any loose things hanging out, of course for pickpocketers, but also just so that way it's less to keep track of as you're moving your bags around. So yes, it was a 2-week trip. I got back at the beginning of September, and now I'm filming this at the end of September. So I've taken the last month to really process my trip, of course post on social media, but really kind of take in how it went, really live in the moment, and be able to provide expertise and recommendations and all of my advice as to how you can make this trip just as amazing for yourself. So of course, a lot of the things I'm going to discuss have to do with Italy and the Greek islands in particular. But I think you can apply a lot of it to their other itineraries as well, whether that's the same countries or different countries as well. I'm actually signed up to go to Costa Rica with them for New Year's Eve. And so I'm going to use a lot of these tips for then as well. So some of my packing tips I would recommend, and full transparency, maybe I'm an overpacker. I don't think I'm that much of an overpacker. I think I'm a prepared packer. I like to bring everything I can think of, but I don't think it's overpacking in the sense that I'm struggling to lug it all around. But that's just my personal opinion, so take it as you will. But the first thing I would recommend is making sure that you bring everything you need in terms of like your medications and anything over the counter, which was super helpful. A lot of girls on the trip needed allergy medicine or needed pads or tampons or things like that, and because I brought a little bit extra, my own little pharmacy, it made me feel good that I could provide that to them, but also have it for myself as well. Bringing both Motrin, Tylenol, Advil, all of that good stuff, allergy medicine, anti-motion sickness medicine, anything like that. I also made sure to bring lots of Band-Aids, moleskin for blisters is super helpful, and also liquid IV was super helpful. When you're in Italy, I highly recommend having a reusable water bottle, more so in Rome than Florence, but you can kind of do it in both places. With a reusable water bottle, there are tons of fountains all around that you can fill up your water for free. And so that was super helpful, reminded us to stay hydrated. But by the time we got to Greece, it was a little bit harder to keep in mind to stay hydrated. And just in general, when you're having a really busy day, you want to make sure that you're not getting too dehydrated. So in a pinch, liquid IV was very helpful to some girls who were really feeling dehydrated and really needed that little bit of a boost. The next thing I would recommend, and this is as a thick-thighed girl, are some bike shorts. So especially when you're wearing dresses, you're going to want to wear them cute dresses on your trip and make sure you look cute and you stay cool since it's super hot. But I didn't want to have to worry about chafing in my thighs. So having bike shorts on underneath your dresses is super helpful to keep you comfortable. Make sure that you don't have to call it in early because you're just not feeling it. And the same thing can be said about shoes too. I brought 3 pairs of shoes. I'll mention the 4th that I brought, but I didn't end up wearing them at all, and I'll explain why. I brought Chacos, which I highly recommend. Unfortunately, I didn't break mine in enough, and so I got blisters with mine, but they still were very helpful in a sense as like water shoes and whatnot, because you want to be careful, especially on the beaches, of sea urchins. A couple people did get stabbed by some. I'm lucky that I didn't. But nevertheless, I brought Chacos. I also brought Birkenstocks, which were super comfy, way comfier than I thought they were going to be. Same can be said with some nice white Adidas tennis shoes, so I'm glad I brought those as well. I also brought, and I put them in my checked bag, so if I lost them, no need for them, but I did bring a really small pair of heels, but I didn't even end up wearing them because number one, you're very uncomfortable, you already have been walking miles and miles a day, and also I just didn't really see a need for them a lot of the time. My little white tennis shoes or my Birkenstocks I thought sometimes were cute enough with my outfits. But some girls did wear their heel. I would just be careful not to rely on them too much or bring more than a pair because you're not really going to need them. But yeah, that is two things I would recommend in terms of clothing. Of course, you want to bring your light flowy dresses. I brought 2 pairs of jeans. I only ended up wearing one because the other ones were like skinny jeans and I got a little hot in them. But jeans were good enough for me. I thought they were going to be hotter than they actually were. And mind you, I went in August, which it was pretty hot. Being in Greece, especially in Athens. I think the couple days that we were there in the beginning, some of the days were like 95. And one of those days I wore jeans and I was pretty all right. So that says a lot. But still make sure that you bring your nice flowy dresses and skirts, and also make sure you bring enough swimsuits. I brought about 4 or 5 and used just about all of them between going to the beaches and the pools. So just want to make sure you have enough. You can never be over prepared, in my opinion. In terms of hair, 2 things. Number one, I brought a 3-barrel hair curler, which I thought was a lifesaver. A lot of the girls were there straightening their hair and curling their hair individually, and for me, a girl that values her sleep and values her makeup and her outfits, it was just one more thing to add on to have to sit there and do that for a long time. So instead, one of the 3-barrel wand curlers that give you more of the beach waves look, I was able to just go in, crimp it really quickly. My roommate, she used it as well because it was so quick and so easy, and I think it looked good enough. So I would highly recommend one of those. And the second point to that, which comes with hair tools and really comes with any of the electronics you bring, is you want to make sure that you have the proper adapters and, if needed, a converter. So with hair tools, you want to make sure they're dual voltage. So if it's dual voltage, then you just need a simple adapter to plug onto the hair tool to change it from your US plug to whatever country you're going to. For example, in Europe, there's different plugs depending on if you're in England versus Italy. If you're traveling somewhere else in the world, there's usually a different plug than the plug that you're used to in the States. So just keep that in mind. Make sure you bring enough of those for all of your electronics, all of your chargers, and all of that good stuff. But if your hair tool is not dual voltage, which you can find out by looking on Amazon, looking at the product page, if it is not dual voltage, you will have to buy a converter, which is a little bit different from an adapter. It's a little bit more pricey. I personally did not want to opt in for that, so I just made sure that my 3-barrel wand was dual voltage and it worked good enough. So hopefully that's the case for you. I know one of my friends did not know that trick and her hair tool burned out, unfortunately. So just keep that in mind. Do your research beforehand. Just keep in mind if it's dual voltage, you should be good to go. If not, you might want to think about a different hair tool or buying a converter instead. Of course, you also need to bring a towel if you're going anywhere that you're going to be by the beach. A lot of people opt in for the microfiber travel towels. They fold up really compact and you can get them on Amazon. I personally just bring a regular bath towel. And I just leave it afterwards. So if I don't need it, if I don't want the towel afterwards, I can just leave it in our last hotel or whenever I don't need it anymore. And at least it's one less thing to have to pack up for home. But at least I have my towel. A lot of the hotels will not like you using their own towels to take to the beaches. So just be mindful and respectful of that. It does make sense. A lot of people on the trip also brought portable fans. I brought a little one that just plugged into my phone that I didn't end up using a ton, but we also did get lucky in a lot of our hotels that had AC. That being said, a couple of the people's rooms were not working as well in terms of AC, so definitely keep that in mind depending on how comfortable you might be sleeping. Also, one thing to touch on this trip is the gender dynamics. So our trip had about 42 people. All of them were women except for 3. We had 3 men on our trip, and then our tour director, Mike, was of course a man as well. And so, of course, it was a very female-heavy trip. I think that comes with a lot of the Italy and the Greek trips. There's usually more women that sign up for them more than men. But nevertheless, you're never going to be forced to be rooming with a man if you don't want to. You're always going to be rooming with women. And in terms of rooming, it was not an Ultimate Plus itinerary, meaning you could have up to 6 people in a room with you. When we were in Florence, we had 5 people to a room, and in every other city afterwards, we had 3 people to a room, except for one city, I believe we had 4. But nevertheless, you didn't really notice much. If anything, it was more friends that you made. Our tour director, Mike, switched up the rooming assignments unless you had specific requests. So that was nice that you get to meet new people or just stay with your friends if that's what you prefer. So yes, all of our hotels were absolutely perfect. One of our hotels in Athens wasn't the best in terms of just being a little small. The handle on the door fell off once, but nevertheless, it still was fine. Part of traveling is things aren't always going to go perfectly, but I like the adventure. So overall, I would highly recommend EF Ultimate Break. I would highly recommend taking that trip that you've been thinking about, that destination that you would love to visit. And I think EF Ultimate Break is a great way to do that. Whether you're going solo, which you're never truly solo with all the people around you, or going with a friend that you might know, you're bound to meet new people and have good experiences. You're going to get some amazing pictures, some amazing souvenirs, and some great friends out of it. And I can't recommend it enough. Of course, with traveling, you're going to have your times where things don't go perfectly or go to plan, but nevertheless, at least you're getting out of your comfort zone and seeing that place that's been on your bucket list, and to me, that's worth it. So like I said, I would love to offer any additional advice. I think I covered a lot of what I wanted to cover here, but I'm sure you still might have questions. Before I took my first EF Ultimate Break trip, I know I was looking at pretty much every YouTube video that there was, so hopefully I can offer some more help. If you want, feel free to message me on Instagram. That's juliana.woz, W-O-Z. I'll also have it on the screen and down below. Feel free to message me, whether that's like a DM, comment, whatever. I would love to chat on Instagram with any of you. And then also feel free to comment down below. Instagram just might be a little bit quicker for me to get back to you. And yeah, I would love to chat, whether that's about this trip, another trip, EF Ultimate Break in general, any of that. I'd love to chat about it and kind of work through your questions or whatever nerves you might be having. So I also wanted to mention that I am lucky enough now, having taken this trip with them, to be approved in their ambassador program. I am lucky enough to be an EF Ultimate Break ambassador as well now. So the only thing that means is I can continue to share my love for travel and chat with you guys and answer any of the questions and share my experiences on the trips I've taken. But I can also give back to you a little bit more as well. So if you're booking your first trip, I would highly, highly, highly recommend using a promo code, whether that's my own or somebody else's. You can use a promo code for an ambassador that will give you $100 off your first trip. So mine is UA Juliana W100, a little bit of a mouthful, but I'll have it down below. You might have to use the link to activate the code and to be able to use it, but if you use that code as you're booking your first trip, you'll save $100. If you have any issues with the code, feel free to leave a comment, message me on Instagram. I'd love to help you out. I know sometimes the link acts up or the code isn't working, so feel free to message me if you're having any issues, just to let me know, and also I can help you out. So if you've made it this far, I really appreciate you being here. This is my first YouTube video, so I'd love any suggestions, comments, questions below or on Instagram. I'd love to hear from you, and hopefully I'll be back to talk about my Costa Rica trip. But yeah, feel free to message me, feel free to reach out, and get your butt out there and travel. So safe travels. Thank you.